I used to work at a beauty salon right in my own neighborhood, just a short walk from home. I did hair, nails, makeup, whatever the job called for, and I also took private clients, either at my place or at theirs. I had several clients who preferred me to come to their house just for the convenience. One day, I remember going to attend a client at her home, and I ended up cutting her husband's hair too. It was the first time I'd ever cut his hair, even though I already knew who he was, since I'd been that client's hairdresser for a while. But I don't know, I just didn't like the way he acted. I say that because he took advantage of a moment when we were alone in the living room to start throwing little comments my way. First, he asked my age, whether I was married, if I had a boyfriend. "Is that really something you ask someone who's there working?" I answered politely, since I've always been a friendly person. At least, that's what everyone tells me. But I had no idea he had bad intentions. While I was cutting his hair after I told him there was no one in my life, he said, "What a waste. A woman like you, all alone. You know, if you ask me, the guys around here are all a bunch of wimps. If I were single..." I felt so uncomfortable, I swear to God. The man was hitting on me inside his own house, with his wife just 4 or 5 meters away. And it wasn't only what he said, it was the way he looked at me. That hunger in his eyes. He only said it because his wife wasn't around to hear. He'd never said anything like that before. He even asked for my number, said he'd pass it along to people at his mother's house, in case they ever needed a trustworthy hairdresser. I told him he could just ask his own wife since she already had my number, but he insisted, "She won't give it to me, and honestly, it'd look strange if I asked her for it. Just give it to me directly." Since he wouldn't let it go and not knowing what else to do, I ended up giving him my number, and what a mistake that turned out to be. Because from that day on, the man wouldn't stop calling and texting me, shameless as ever, hitting on me without a hint of embarrassment. I never gave him the time of day. Whenever I saw it was him calling, I either ignored it or hung up. Since I'd never saved his contact, I couldn't always keep track of how many times he'd asked me out. I'd lost count. He made no effort at all to hide that he wanted to get me into bed, said I'd bewitched him, that he was in love, that he wouldn't rest until I agreed to go out with him. One day I even threatened him. "Look, if you don't stop this, Fabio, I'm going to have to tell Christina everything. I don't want to do it, but I don't see another way out." That's exactly what I should have done from the very beginning. Gone to Christina and shown her the messages he kept sending me. I only never told her because I didn't want trouble, and I didn't want to lose a client I'd had for so long. Well, everything has its price, doesn't it? Honestly, that woman was my client. We got along well. I didn't want to fall out with her, but I also didn't want to hurt her marriage, to turn against her husband. So I figured it was best to just keep quiet and mind my own business. I was never the type to entertain married men. I always kept my distance from that sort of thing. The worst part is that I seem to attract exactly that type of man. How many times had this happened to me before? How much trouble had I already gotten mixed up in because of it? Married men hitting on me. In Fabio's case, he simply couldn't accept that I wasn't that kind of woman. Anyway, sometime later, on a Saturday, I was at the salon, almost closing time, just finishing up my last client, when a young man walked in through the door. He spoke with one of the girls, asked who I was, and she pointed him toward me. He came over and asked if we could have a word. Even though I had no idea what he wanted, I said yes and asked him to wait until I finished with my client. He waited outside. When I came out, I asked him who he was and what he wanted to talk to me about. "My name is Diego. I'm Christina's son. She's your client." I looked him up and down, studying him, because I had never spoken to any son of Christina's before. "You're her son? My God, I've been doing Christina's hair for so long, and I didn't even know she had a son your age, and come to think of it, I never saw you when I went over there." "Right. I wasn't living with her. I moved back not long ago." "Okay, but what did you want to talk to me about?" "It's about my father, about Fabio." I said that name out loud, on impulse. The moment he mentioned it was about his father. I won't lie. I felt a cold shiver in the pit of my stomach. Could this have something to do with Fabio hitting on me? It had been a while since he'd last called. I admit, I got nervous. "What about your father?" I asked. "Is there something going on between you two?" "Excuse me?" I flinched when he asked that, but before I could even answer, he added, "My mother saw some messages on his phone, ones you two had been exchanging. She got sick over it." I heard that and nearly fell backward. According to the young man, Christina had gotten physically ill after seeing the messages Fabio had been sending me. She'd even wanted to come confront me right then and there, only they hadn't let her. Oh my God, that was all I needed. I ended up telling him the whole story. I told him the truth, didn't add a single word that wasn't true. I told him it was his father, Fabio, who kept hitting on me, who called, who texted, and I swore I had never responded to any of it. I was completely stunned by everything that young man was telling me. Imagine finding yourself in a situation like that without even seeing it coming. I had never once encouraged that man. Too bad I always deleted his messages. I didn't even have his contacts saved anymore. I swear to God, I never saved that man's number. I don't know if the young man believed me right away, judging by the way he was studying me, but I remember he said, "Yeah, I know exactly what my father's like. He's never respected my mother, but still, you really never had anything with him?" "Of course not, I swear to God. I had to swear it more times than I can count. I felt hurt on Christina's behalf because I wasn't guilty of anything. I never had anything with that man. And what pained me wasn't just knowing I'd almost certainly lost a client, it was knowing I'd lost a friend too. In the end, I think Diego believed me. He could see I was being honest, that it was his own father who'd been the one bothering me all along. My mistake, from the start, was never telling Christina. Either way, I asked him to explain the situation to his mother and told him that if it came to it, I would talk to her myself in person, because I had nothing to hide. I told him I might have every flaw in the world, but I had never gotten involved with a married man. And the worst part is, that was the absolute truth. Never, ever. Before he left, he asked if I cut men's hair too. I told him I did. He said he'd stop by the salon one of these days to get his hair cut. I liked that young man. Honestly, I was surprised to learn he was that man's son. He was so thoughtful, intelligent, reasonable, that instead of showing up to accuse me, he'd come to hear my side of the story. I liked him, and on top of that, he was good-looking. I won't lie, I was scared, worried about the consequences of all this, imagining that Christina would come talk to me too. But the days went by and that never happened. Fabio never sent anything else either. Thank goodness. A few weeks later, on a Saturday, Diego showed up at the salon again. I felt a bit uneasy seeing him, thinking his mother might be with him. But no, he was alone. He wanted a haircut. We talked a lot while I worked on him. He told me he'd recently separated, which is why he wasn't living with his mother anymore. He'd been living with a woman, though they weren't legally married. I was surprised to learn he was 24. I had no idea Christina had a son that age. I liked the way he was, and he even told me he'd talked to his mother and that she'd decided to let the whole episode go. I felt relieved to hear that. In the end, I walked him to the salon door, and he asked me something. "Tell me something. What are the chances we could go grab a drink sometime to keep this conversation going?" "Wow, Diego, I don't know." "What about your mother?" I asked. "What about her?" "I don't know. What if she doesn't like it because of everything that happened?" "Relax. It has nothing to do with that." I ended up giving him my number, and he said he'd get in touch so we could arrange something. My co-workers at the salon even teased me about it, since they'd noticed a certain spark between us. We ended up going out afterward for a beer and a talk. The truth is, from the very start, you could feel there was something in the air, so much so that it didn't take long for our first kiss to happen. After a couple of beers, both of us a little looser, we ended up together. It was the first of many times. We also started talking every single day, on the phone and in person. I just let it happen, since he seemed like a great guy, and our chemistry was good from the beginning. I remember one day he came to ask me, "Can I tell my mum we're together?" "Wow, Diego, I don't know. You think it won't cause trouble with your mother?" "Of course not. I think she understood everything, especially since I told her it was my father who kept bothering you. By the way, I've been meaning to ask you for a while now. Has your father sent you anything since then? Did he stop hitting on you?" "Thank God, yes. Look, I'm sorry, I know he's your father, but what an awful man." He gave a sad little smile when I said that, but didn't say anything more. In the end, we mutually agreed it was best to keep our relationship just between us, so no one could interfere or stir up trouble. We never brought up the subject again after that day, what we really were to each other, but that was just a detail, because since we talked and saw each other all the time, to me what we had already been a real relationship from the start. Until one day, a message came in. Guess from who? From Fabio, who hadn't sent anything in a long time. Just seeing it was from him put me on guard right away. I thought, great, this pest again. Like I said, I never saved his number, so I had no idea what it was about. When I opened it, the message read, in that same style of his that you could recognize a mile away. "Hey there, beautiful. Miss you, gorgeous. It's been a while since we talked, hasn't it? Now that the dust has settled, what do you say we meet up?" What a disgusting man. Of course I didn't reply, even though he sent a few more messages, all along the same lines. On impulse, I took screenshots and sent them to Diego, just so he could see what his own father had been sending me. I never imagined it would lead to what it did. He replied right away, "I can't believe this. I can't believe it. But don't worry, I'm going to have a serious talk with him." I asked him to just let it go, that I only wanted him to know that he shouldn't confront his father. I didn't want to fight because of me, and I didn't want any trouble with his mother either. But even though he saw my message, he never replied after that. That was on a Saturday. That afternoon I was at the salon working, when guess who walked in through the door, practically breathing fire? None other than Christina. She wasn't just looking at me. She was glaring daggers. I felt a shiver run through my whole body. My legs went weak. My heart started racing. I was in the middle of a client at that moment, but she didn't care one bit. She came right up to me, pointing her finger in my face. "You got involved with my husband, didn't you? And now you're circling my son too. Have you no shame? Do you have some kind of problem with me? I'm warning you. Stay far away from my family. Far away, or I'll destroy you." Imagine the humiliation. 3 clients in the salon, me in the middle of doing one of their hair, and this woman saying all that to my face in front of everyone. Then she turned to the rest of the people around and snapped, "And the rest of you, what are you all staring at?" She said that, turned around, and walked out. A dead silence fell over the room, everyone pretending not to look. But I could feel their eyes on me. Think about the shame I felt. If I could have, I would have run out of there. Thank goodness, despite the looks on their faces, nobody said a single word about it. It was only later that I found out father and son had gotten into it over those messages. Diego had gone to confront Fabio, they argued badly, almost came to blows. It only didn't get worse because Christina's brother happened to be at the house and pulled them apart. I regretted sending Diego that screenshot, although on the other hand, it served Fabio right. After that, Christina kept sending me a bunch of messages, cursing me out, threatening me, saying I'd regret it. In the end, after thinking it over, reflecting a lot, I decided to distance myself from Diego. What made it worse was that I was really enjoying what we had together. He was such a good person, so different from that awful father of his. How were things ever going to work out between us, with his father being that kind of man? and his mother wanting to destroy me, believing I'd had something going on with her husband. I swear on everything sacred that I never did, and I never would have. Even if he'd been the last man on earth, we could have kept going. He wanted to. He pushed for it. But then what? How would that have worked? I never did anything wrong, but Christina was never going to change the picture she had of me in her head because of everything that had happened. She never once had an actual response from me to that man's messages because I never replied, and I certainly never accepted any of his invitations. And yet, even so, she blamed me, even though I had no responsibility in any of it. And that actually is the main reason I decided to write this account. So many people have heard this story about my life, and they still point at me in the street to this day. A lot of people talk about me. I know it because they believe it's true that I had something going on with that man. I'll say it again. Even if he'd been the last man on the planet, I still wouldn't have wanted anything to do with him. First of all, I'm a decent woman. I have my flaws. I've made mistakes in life. But this isn't one of them, and I have nothing to be ashamed of. I have self-respect. I was raised right. I would never get involved with a married man. And if I ever did, it certainly wouldn't be with someone like him. That man ruined my life, dragged my reputation through the mud. Everyone who talks about me, who believes I had something with him, doesn't know the truth. I swear on everything sacred that I never did. I think I'll die swearing it, and there will always be people who never believe me. It's such a shame. It's a shame that because of that man, I had to distance myself from Diego, because things between us were going so well. I really was falling for him. It's hard to believe that one is the father of the other. They're such completely different people. It's like one is the father and the other is the son only on paper, unless we'd left his family behind entirely, moved far away. But how could that even work? There was no way. He would have missed his mother and even his shameless father. Family is family, and I hold that close. That's why I decided to put an end to it. I never wanted him to distance himself from his own family because of me. But what a shame, you know? What a shame. It's with a heavy heart that I say this, from the bottom of my heart. What a shame, because I really was falling for him. If this story touched you in any way, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. Subscribe here so you don't miss future stories. There's a lot of great stuff coming up. And let me know in the comments. Has this ever happened to you? Have you been through a similar situation? I'd love to hear your story.